Hi everyone, this is Demo Gonzalez of Heartwood Financial Services. Market update for February. We've come a long ways from the December doldrums at Christmas Eve. A big turnaround in the markets, mostly attributed to the Fed. They made a big U-turn right after Christmas Eve. And a lot of this is because the economy seems to be slowing down. They're starting to see things slow down not only globally but here in the U.S. And so they're being a lot more patient. And some people even think that the Fed may not raise rates at all this year. But that has been a good positive catalyst. We've also seen earnings, which have been revised down, and down, have actually been coming in a little better than expected. And so that's helped the markets come up a little bit. And of course, the last thing is the China trade talks been progressing nicely. Now, those three things have been in the past, and what I hope to talk to you guys about today is more about what's going on now, what's being priced in, and what's coming up. So in this video, we're going to cover where the market is right now and the valuations. Then I'm going to talk about what will be the catalyst, what's going to keep the market moving in this positive direction going forward. And the last piece is, what is the recession outlook? There's a lot of talk about that, and I want to show you some neat graphics to help educate you about where we are with that. Okay, from a valuation standpoint, here is where the market is right now. If you remember from my math behind the S&P 500 video from last month, you can see that basically we're taking the estimates for 2019 times the earnings, PE earnings ratio, to get to approximately where the S&P 500 should be for the year, 2750. What we're seeing right now is we're pretty much there, about 2775. We're, give or take, that changes, it seems like, every day. So what I'm projecting is that we wouldn't have that much more to go in the market based on where we are right now, unless there are or is some sort of catalyst that's going to move us going forward. So that's the next piece here that I want to talk about. But you can see here that things have come back nicely, and we're pretty much right in line where I think we should be if all stays the same. So what will propel the markets more going forward? Well, I believe it could be the China trade deal. Now, here's the tricky thing about the China trade deal. There's 4 components, I believe, that are part of this trade deal, and I think some of these actually are already priced in. So if you look at the first one is having more access to the Chinese market. Now, this has been an open discussion, and the Chinese seem very open to this. So I think there's been a lot of progress, and some of this has been priced in. And then when you look at the second one, reducing the trade deficit with China, this has been one of Trump's big rallying cries. It seems like the Chinese are okay with trying to reduce that deficit. They've talked about buying more agriculture, more energy. And so that's making Trump happy and could help with that deficit. And so since this has been pretty open, I think a lot of progress there and a lot of it being priced in again with the market. The third one is protecting intellectual property and technology. Now, this has been a really big issue, as I don't need to tell all of you, and I'm sure you've heard in the news how the Chinese have been stealing our technology. And so I believe there's also been a lot of progress in this front. Now, not a lot of details on this, so I think if there's some serious enforcement and some detailed wording on this, I think the market could react positively. But I also believe that a lot of this is priced in, so it remains to be seen how this all shakes out. But the last one, the removing the tariffs that were recently added, this is the one that's still very uncertain. Trump has threatened to continue on with the tariffs. He talks about how it's bringing in a lot of money, although that could be argued, of course, because who's really paying for the tariffs? But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. If there are some removal of these tariffs, I think we could see still another positive movement in the market. So I don't think a lot of that has been priced in. If we don't remove the tariffs, I think the market could be a little disappointed. We could be seeing a flat or even a small drop due to that. But I think just having a trade deal is going to be very helpful for the global economy. But if we can remove the tariffs, I think we could get a really nice positive catalyst. Now, I don't know how much of an impact it's going to have, but I think it could have an impact for several years to come. You know, the China trade wars really hurt China. Now, it's hurt the whole world, including the United States, but mostly China. And I also believe any kind of trade resolution is going to help China, and it's going to help them a lot, which is also going to help the global markets. And when you look at the markets on a relative basis, the international markets are much more better value, much more attractive is what I meant to say. And so if things start to grow more internationally, that could be a very attractive place to be. Now, you've heard me talk about that quite a bit too. So the next piece I want to talk about is, could there be a recession coming? Okay, so what is the recession outlook? Well, first of all, let's clarify. Recessions happen, okay? And usually they happen about every 5 or 6 years. Now, we're already in a 10-plus period of economic growth without a recession. That is unusual. But I do believe it might be a trend going forward, because it seems like the growth periods are getting longer and longer and longer, and actually the recessions are getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So this could be kind of the proof in the pudding here. Now, this chart looks kind of complicated. I won't go into a lot of detail. This was provided by econpie.com. What they do is they put together all the leading indicators. These are all the things that are looking forward to see where the economy is going. And there's lots of different data points. What they do is they put them on this chart that shows on the top part the growth is positive. On the far right quadrant, top right quadrant, is not only is it positive, but it's actually growing. On the left side, it's positive, but it's decelerating. Okay, so we see here that we're actually about 50-50, where we have these leading indicators growing and expanding, or growing and sort of decelerating. The red little square here is basically the average of all these leading indicators. Okay, and this rectangle below it right here, this is the historical place where, when that red square reaches that spot, where a recession usually begins. Now, it might look like we're pretty close, but I've studied these charts for a while, and it actually can take probably another 6 months to maybe 18 months to move into that direction. It does seem like we are getting closer, though, so we're certainly closer to a recession than we were from the last recession that wrapped up in 08. Now, again, we could move back into the top right quadrant if some of the things that I talked about with China take place. And so that's what makes the market hard to predict, and these recessions hard to predict. But I do believe that we're probably looking at a potential recession maybe in a year or two. Not making any dramatic changes at this point, because I still feel that it's a little ways away, but I am starting to take small steps here and there to start moving our portfolios into a slightly more conservative position, especially here over the next 6 months or so. Okay? Okay, last slide. You know how I always like to end with a little insightful tidbit. This comes again from the Bible, where there's actually a lot of financial wisdom in the Bible. A lot of people don't realize that. And this particular verse just spoke to me this week. It's from Ecclesiastes. King Solomon wrote this, one of the wisest men on the planet. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. So what this verse means to me is that no matter what point in your life you are, there's a purpose for that point in your life. If you're a kid, if you're a full-grown adult, or if you're retired. You know, a lot of times we think our purpose is to work. And maybe that's a big part of your purpose, but what do you do after work, for example, in retirement? Just because you're retired doesn't mean you don't have a purpose anymore. It might mean that you have more time to volunteer. It might mean more time with the grandkids, with the kids. Obviously, traveling and doing fun things is great too. But the point here is that you're not done just because you retire. You know, there's still a lot more for you to do, and I think this verse makes it pretty clear. So I'd like for you guys to ponder about that one. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you soon.